Hello everyone and welcome to the LSI summer season. We're today for the Saturday tier round one. You know what? I'm going to go for that one again. Hello everyone and welcome to the LSI summer season. We're today for the Saturday tier round one, the Austrian Grand Prix. Small grid, but we could have some great racing, I'm sure. We will be shortening the race because of this, so we'll be running a 35% distance race for 100% points instead of a 50% distance race. All drivers agreed to do so, so that is why we are doing that. And we have a few people out already. They've done their laps. Nifo, of course, yesterday fighting at the very front, 3.8. They've got practice in. Pursuit Frantic not so much, but they are still in the race, or in the race today. And yes, but brand new driver, welcome to the league. Not exactly the way we wanted to welcome them, to a very small grid, but you know what, summer, the Euros, it makes things very difficult and people don't want to miss that stuff, so we can't blame them, and we'll just have to hope that in the next couple of weeks we'll get some more drivers, and we will work on doing that for sure and continue to make sure that this is fixed for the future. But it does happen from now and again from time to time. Pursuit is going to be finishing their next lap. They come around the final couple of corners and they invalidate on the last bit, and unfortunately that won't matter. We go across and see what it's going to be. It'll be a 3.828, so still not enough to get to Nifayan there. Frantic currently down the back straight as we watch on board. Missing the apexes, they're actually slowing down. Yes, was on their way out, but Nifayan is going again. Let's see what this man can do. The P2 from yesterday in the race. Big mistake there on the exit with the curb. It can throw you off easily on the inside, and that's what you just saw. He managed to keep it within track limits and in a straight line, which is pretty impressive, I will say. Now up into turn 3, braking as hard as they can, sending it, trying to release the brakes so you don't lock up. Without going off track limits, of course, they did use the outside curb a little bit there into turn 4, 80 meters. Slight bit of under rotation, but got on the exit curb nicely. Feed the steering to the right. And we go for the double left-hander of turns 6 and 7. Unfortunately, touching the inside curb. That's not going to be any good for the lap time, and unfortunately they will be having to go back into the pit lane and coming out again if they want to go for an improvement lap, as you can see them dart to the inside, and that one is done. Now Frantic and Pursuit both go again. Not Pursuit, sorry, Frantic goes again, I believe, and they are improving. They've used a lot of energy though, so I don't know if they're going to get enough to really go for the rest of this lap, making a mistake and going into the gravel. We go on board with Jesper now. 5.1 they have got. They are improving on this lap as they go into the first, well, heavy braking zone. I say that, really it's turn 1, but that's turn 3 right there. We go to turn 4, second DRS straight of the lap, or 2.5 DRS straights, as you get half from the start finish straight, of course. And then we go through the technical section of the circuit. The double left-handers in this game, you barely need to lift. It's incredibly difficult to understand compared to previous games. You turn in, perfect turn in, not quite getting to the inside where they wanted to, but still, the lap is more important to just get the job done. When they come into the final 2 corners now, once again, it's a corner where you just shift down and don't really brake. You do brake for the final corner at turn 10. On the throttle DRS, and that is going to be a 4.4, so slowly closing that gap. They've got a bit more time to go in and come out again if they can push the car to the limits, and we'll see what they can do. But a 4.4, they are making that progress, of course. Could try and catch up and get in front of Frantic. And yes, but hasn't raced since F1 2019-2020, I think it was. So a long time ago, they last league race by the F1 24 game, and now they're back in it. So it's great to see them return to league racing. And I'm sure they'll be able to find more pace the more they drive. And yeah, very excited to see what they can do on the circuit. 4.4, will that be good enough to try and improve and catch the others? It's going to be just over 6/10 to get to Nifo. So would that be possible? Track evolution, everyone has the same track evolution, so I don't know if that would really be something considered. But I think with somebody that is experienced they will be able to slowly gain that time. And he's only just got the game recently, so got to have that patience for sure. Frantic comes out again for the final time this evening in qualifying. 3 minutes on the clock. What can the man do? Alrighty, here we go for the final time with Frantic, DRS, and starting the lap. Turn 1 is on its way. ERS being used, of course. You can get away with a little bit of overtake if you really plan it nicely. You've got to be careful you don't use too much. It's using quite a lot down that straight. They might run out of deployment if they're not careful, but maybe they have a plan to do so into the braking zone of turn 3, getting the car nicely fed through, and on the traction nice and smoothly, getting that done straight in the wheel. And it should be fairly easy, but there is a bit of a bump on the exit off turn 3. There's also quite a lot of bumps around this circuit that can give you a lot of bottoming out issues. You have to be super careful, otherwise you're going to get big problems. Now, feeding it through turn 6 on the exit, unfortunately going over track limits. They might be able to save the ERS and go again, but other than that, I think it might be quite difficult to do so. Pursoon manages to get through turn 6, and they won't invalidate right there on the exit of 8. Nice and smooth. They get a moment to relax before the final 2 corners. Frantic moves out the way. They will not be going again, potentially. High speed through turn 9, turn 10, full sends, very close to track limits. What's it going to be for the Belgian driver? It's going to be a 3.4. That's absolutely awesome. Nifo starts their final lap. Frantic is going to go again, and we'll see what they can do. But with Nifojan, they just need to find a little bit more time. I say a little bit more time. Just under 4 tenths there, about a tenth down in the first sector. They've got 2 more sectors to try and get that back up, and they definitely can. The 2 final sectors are the sectors where you can gain the most time after all, so that should be absolutely fun. They're just going to make sure that they keep it careful, and they'll be good to go. Nicely riding the exit curve, the green patch on the outside. Getting to the inside curve nicely as well, not understeering as before. Turning in for 7 and riding 8 fully to maximise the lap time. Final two corners to go here in their lap. Qualifying's over. What's it going to be for Nifo? Final corner, full send, absolutely awesome. DRS available. What's it going to be? It's going to be a 4.0. It's not going to be an improvement, unfortunately. Frantic will go into the pit lane. That's going to look like Pursoon might have it. Jesper, final two corners for them to finish off their qualifying, fully cutting turn 9. Final corner, DRS available. What's it going to be for the Swede? It's going to be a 4.3, and they just miss out on getting in front of Frantic there. Very good effort though from everyone. That is qualifying complete. Pursoon is on pole position, and we have Nifo and P2, Frantic, and then Jesper to finish off the grid. Lovely stuff. That's all done, and we will be ready to race within a few moments' time. Now, 35% distance race will be an interesting one. Obviously, strategies can be a little bit different. It does mean that strategy is still something. It's not as interesting as a 50% distance race, but it's a little bit more interesting than a 25% distance race, of course, with a little bit more flexibility of when you can pit. With a 35% distance, will it be possible to do a soft? I don't quite know. Pursoon takes pole position, Nifo P2, Frantic, then Jesper. We go for the race director just in case. We'll be back for the race. We'll see you in a bit. Ready? Hold. Go! Who's going to get it into turn 1? We're away. Pursuit off into turn 1. Nifo's going to have the inside line in the rainy conditions. Will they get a better traction? They're going to try and push Pursuit to the track limits. They do go to the track limits and off the track slightly. Frantic Sing right behind. What can they get done? Will they try and go for a move as well? They're going to try and follow Pursuit actually back into the lead of the Grand Prix. And instead of going for P1, it's now P3 that they might lose to. If they're not careful, they just about muscle their way back to P2. Does Nifo. That was a close call indeed, but they managed to get the job done, and now they're going on the attack here very, very early on to try and have a go at the Belgian driver, the F1.5 champion versus an F1 multiple winner, also F1 multiple winner for Pursuit as well. Now, not quite getting the job done on this lap. They're probably going to have to wait a little bit longer. These full wet tyres are incredibly tricky to drive. It's not going to be easy at all. Frantic dropping back a little bit. I do feel very sorry for Jesper here. Brand new driver to the new handling model in the game, and in wet conditions they've got their race. That is absolutely tragic, but the game is the game, and I'm sure they'll be able to make use of it somewhat. It will be all useful stuff, all valuable lessons to learn this early on in the game, especially as well. Pursuit leads the way on the first lap. Nifayan is right behind, riding the curve a little bit though, which isn't going to help his run, and Pursuit will be able to hold on by the end of the straight. I say that using the energy as Nifo. Straight line speed seems to be good enough for him to be able to challenge into the turn 3 corner, but on the exit again the traction is not there, and Pursuit will hold on. And Frantic's not too far away as these guys are battling. Of course that does help. Will any moves be attempted into turn 4? I don't quite know, but currently Jesper's doing a very good job to keep with Frantic, considering this is one of their first races since F1, well, a couple of years ago. We'll see if they can get the job done a little bit later on, if they might have a go at a move. We don't know what the weather's going to be like later on. It might start to dry up. I have not been confirmed what the forecast is. I was hoping that it wasn't going to be wet, but it is going to be wet. We've got 25 laps of this race. That's taken about 11 laps off of the usual race that we get, whereas 25% distance would have been around about, what, 13 laps we would have had, so this still gives us a decent amount more to the race. Now, once again, will Nifo try and challenge into turn 3? I don't think so. They're not going to be close enough this time around, unfortunately. The gap is also a little bit large in between Nifo and Frantic, not as large between Frantic and Jesper, but it's bigger than the gap that we've got right here. Actually, it's almost the same, to be honest. So you've got kind of two trains forming at the moment, and I just want to really keep an eye on whether that rain is going to start to go, or if it is just going to stay as it is. But Nifo trying to hold on. No DRS in the dry conditions, which makes it incredibly difficult to actually stay together, and that's what you can see right here happening. Pursuit in the clean air, just loving it at the moment. And in wet conditions, not only is it just difficult anyway, but if you're behind a car in front, you get that less downforce from the dirty air, very slightly of course, but you also can't make an overtake as easy. The braking points are a lot more sensitive. You've got to be incredibly careful, otherwise you're just going to smash into the car behind. Now Jesper's managed to catch up here to Frantic in the last few corners. We might see an overtake attempt right here. It could be possible. Getting a phenomenal entry as Jesper. Frantic not so much. Getting a little bit surprised there was the Swedish driver, unfortunately. Not quite expecting that to happen to Frantic. Now on the exit though, down the straight, they've got a lot of straight line speed. They go on the attack on the inside line. They release the brakes and get the car phenomenally through the corner. That's awesome stuff. And that is Frantic just going to have to hold on. And they are definitely finding their feet, Jesper. 4.3 seconds, 4.4 seconds. And they're just trying to see what they can get done here. Is it going to work out? I don't know. On the exit, both drivers squirming a little bit out of turn 4. Go through 5 and into 6. And they are as close as ever. Frantic's not happy. Losing the car a little bit as they find a little bit of a loss of traction, unfortunately. they continue on their merry way. If in the meantime has been able to hold on nicely to the back of Pursoon. Lap 4 about to be lap 5 out of 25. That is some incredible lag that we've just seen. Frantic disappeared almost, but they continue now, and they might be able to have another go here at attacking and getting back that P3 if they really do their best at the exit of turn 1. We go back to this battle just to double check. They do ride the curve, unfortunately, and despite using all the energy that they can, unfortunately I don't think they'll be able to challenge into turn 3 right here. They'll have to save a little bit more energy and try and see if they can find their way in a few moments time. Just beginning a little bit deep into the corner right there, which isn't exactly ideal, but it still works and they stay ahead. And as I said, in the wet conditions it's just incredibly difficult to really make an overtake, and that's what you have to watch out for. Oh, that was a little bit of an interesting situation. Jesper making a mistake, and that was Frantic trying to go through. Another mistake there for Jesper, and that is going to be Frantic through, but not by much. Jesper's going to send it to the inside of turn 9. They back off, and they let things carry on just about, but very, very close to contact there between the two drivers. If not contact, just saved by the ghosting. As we could see, that was absolutely incredible. Using the energy, very slow is Frantic, not entirely sure what's happening there. We've got Pursoon, who is leading. That is Niffa, who managed to make that gap now 4 tenths instead of the 6 to 8 tenths that it was. And on the exit, could we see an attempt at making an overtake? ERS is being used. They are going to try and send it into turn 4. They stop using as they realise, you know what, I'm not actually catching at the rate that I really want to, so I'm going to have to hold off for now. Yes, but using the energy that they've managed to save us being ahead, they go to the outside line to attack, but not quite getting alongside enough. Despite that, Frantic still leaves the space, loses the car on exit, gets on the curb on the outside, which should be kind of good for dry conditions, but not really in the wet. And although looking for the switchback from Jesper, they do make a mistake, gets them understeer, and that is that overtaking attack kind of finished. Although Frantic does look like they're struggling a little bit here on the throttle, which isn't exactly great, but it is good news here for Jesper as they can focus on that and maybe see if they can be a bit patient themselves and maybe find a way a bit sooner rather than later on the Frantic. But Frantic, as soon as Jesper gets through, seems to be pretty close, that's for sure. No switching between the front two, I don't believe. I believe they will continue as they are. The pit stops, whether they'll actually turn up in this race, I don't quite know. In the wet conditions, you don't actually legally need to make a pit stop, so it could stay as it is. We'll get an overtaking opportunity here from Niffa as they send it to the outside line. Will they make it work? Going as late as they can, getting the rotation, but just a bit too much, and it's not going to be matching Pursoon's traction, who had that inside line, but sending it to the inside to find another opportunity because of this opening. Absolutely perfect stuff there from Niffa, but just can't quite match Pursoon. Pursoon has track advantage. They are there. They are the one dictating the line, and they've got that traction down on the superior line, I guess you could say at that point at least, and they will hold on to that P1 for now. Now, as I was trying to say just a few moments ago, never mind, that's Frantic making a mistake. Unfortunately, Jesper goes through, and once again these guys are going to have to try and sort themselves out for position. If Frantic can get back through or not, I don't quite know, but Jesper once again leads the way. As you can see, Frantic was kind of losing traction on the car a little bit here and there, but actually it might just be the way their cars handle, and that's the way it looks. I'm not entirely sure, I may be wrong there. But anyway, as I was saying, strategy, very, very difficult around this game. It's kind of, it's an interesting one. I say that. Dry tyres, they wear out a different race depending on how you drive the car, which is kind of good. It's kind of got its negatives and positives for sure. But then if you look at wet strategies, you're not legally obliged to actually pit when you're on wet conditioned tyres. Whether these guys can make it to the end of the race on a 35% distance race, I don't quite know. They might give it a shot, whether they'll do that or go for another set of wets, they might do another set of wets, and if they do another set of wets, it'll be around about the halfway mark of the Grand Prix, because there's not really much of a point to not do so. So we could see that around about lap 11 to 13, we could see some pit stops to go onto a fresh set of wet tyres. And I don't actually know how much the wet tyres wear in this game, so that is a bit of a mystery to me, unfortunately. Now we go back with these guys just to see, would there be an overtake opportunity into turn 3 again. The long straight, even though it's wet conditions, it does seem to give plenty of chance for a battery to be deployed and speed to be gained, but unfortunately this time around it's not going to work out for Frantic, and they will have to wait behind Jesper after all that. Try and be smooth on the throttle. They might look into 4, but no, not quite. Jesper's still very strong on the power right there. That was awesome stuff from the man. 14-second gap between Jesper and Nifo Jan as the top two work together. Nifo goes for the fastest lap in the meantime, so pretty rapid at the moment. And once again it seems to be a similar story. Nifo working with another driver in the top two, as they did yesterday, to get that 1-2 in the Grand Prix. That is a big mistake there for Jesper, but an even bigger mistake there for Frantic, as they were all pretty loose. Frantic having to go off the circuit to take avoiding action, otherwise they could have been in the wall. But very well held for both drivers. And still, despite that, Frantic's not that far away. Jesper actually making a mistake on the exit, all a little bit squirmy. Frantic's going to somehow find their way to make an opportunity, which is absolutely incredible considering what they had just done. And Jesper realises Frantic backed off, so I'm just going to take the racing line. And despite that, they still managed to find some oversteer. Does Frantic, even though they were slowing down, it's not really what they want to do if they want to try and put the pressure on. So that was a mistake there for Jesper, but they managed to keep hold of the lead. Pit stops could come around this lap potentially, or a little bit more. ERS being used by Nifo on the exit, as it looked like they were going to try and go for an overtake, but then they quickly cancelled that, so they might not bother. And that might suggest that they don't want to go for that pit stop. Now, that is Jesper making another mistake, unfortunately, going off the circuit turn 1. An incredibly difficult corner to take, especially with a car that you have to run as stiff and oversteery at Austria. It's so difficult. Then you have to drive it in the rain, even more so is it a trouble. Now, Frantic is super close. Not able to get the throttle down though over the bump on the exit of turn 3, so they will have to wait. I really wish they would change that. I don't know how it is in real life. I'm sure it's pretty bumpy in real life anyway. Now, it does mean, of course, that opportunity was quickly slipped away, despite Jesper having that big mistake, not only in the first corner, but at turn 3, where they weren't really able to get on the throttle too early at all on the exit. They will continue. No pit stops between the top two. And these guys will run as they were and as they have done for this entire race. Not troubling each other, just allowing them to extend a little bit further. And if they're lucky, they might even be able to extend as far enough to be able to be comfortably in front of the two drivers behind, without making a pit stop. And they could then make a pit stop and still be ahead, which would be interesting to see. Of course, that is another mistake there for Jesper if they go off at turn 1, exactly the same as last time around, but not really giving them enough trouble. Now Frantic once again not able to get on the traction as well as Jesper on the exit, although Jesper takes a very, very conservative mid-corner. They still manage to get the throttle done. They go a little bit slower mid-corner and entry compared to Frantic, but on the throttle they're just too powerful and into turn 4 there is no question about it. Although there was a mistake earlier on that allowed Frantic to have a go into turn 4, it just seems to be that turn 4 is virtually impossible to have a look at. The way that Jesper's driving that car, which is pretty impressive, at least from what I can see, that's what it looks like is happening at the moment. Driving the car in different ways in the wet conditions to try and prevent the cars from behind from going for overtakes is very, very smart to do so. If you can prevent them from going for overtakes in the main corners, then they're not going to be able to pass you anywhere else, which is actually absolutely perfect. Now, the wet weather is still pretty heavy. The rain is still coming down pretty heavy. I thought maybe there was a chance for an intermediate tyre, but unfortunately I think it will stay pretty wet. It doesn't look super wet, like there's puddles everywhere, but that might just be me trying to get used to the game. You can see that there is a drier line, although it is still pretty slippy. You can see there is an obvious racing line, which might mean it is possible to run on an intermediate tyre as long as you don't go wide. That is, of course, if you go wide you might end up aquaplaning, which is never going to help. But it is not impossible to go for a set of tyres, intermediate tyres maybe for the drier line, but really do not take my word for it. That is just a theory, and I think these guys are going to continue to stay out, to be honest, and they might even look to continue and not go into the pit lane. As I said, you don't need to do so. Maybe within well over 10 laps, over 11 laps, so about 11 and a half laps, it might change weather-wise, and that's why these guys are waiting. Or they're just thinking, you know what, there is no point of us pitting, we might just continue and see if we can hold on to these wet tyres, and they'll be absolutely fine. Definitely, a fresh set of wet or intermediate tyres does help massively. In this game, I'm not sure, but F123, it would be very, very powerful as long as you got it right to go for a pit stop, of course. And it would only take you a matter of laps to be able to catch up and maybe make an overtake if you're not unlucky and encounter a safety car after immediately pitting. And that is just the typical luck if you do decide to go for a pit stop. That is something that could very much happen. Top two, not going to be making an overtake as Nifo, despite using the energy. They don't have much to deploy. They try to use every last little bit they could have from that battery, but nothing will come of it. And these two almost have extended that 21 second range. That was a Frantic getting a time penalty, unfortunately the first time penalty of the evening. Now Jesper 21 seconds behind. So that's an interesting situation. I've gone the wrong way, we'll go on board with Frantic for this one. But 21 seconds, I believe it's long enough for the pit lane, and I believe it should be long enough for a wet pit lane as well. Obviously it would be slower in the wet conditions, but if these guys pit, maybe the other guys will pit anyway. Doesn't look like they're going to bother doing it, and they will continue on their merry way just on these wet tyres. Whether that's the right call, I don't quite know. I reckon someone could go into the pit lane here and still be good to go. These two struggling a lot on the traction. The difference between them, though, Frantic struggled on the traction earlier in the corner, which means that he's able to catch up massively and look at maybe going for an overtake, but they back off and let things be. Just struggling under braking, it seems, just Frantic, and they will continue back on the throttle. They've got a lot of energy to be able to use to catch back up, but they do have to be careful, because otherwise, if they break away too much, then they won't be able to put the pressure on the car in front, and they won't have any advantage. That is Nifo going very, very close to the car in front. On the other hand, as they were 4 tenths behind when we panned over, they were very close, I think a lot closer than 4 tenths into the middle of turn 4, and on the exit 6 to 5 tenths. They did lose a little bit of time by the time we exited, but they continue, and in a straight line more importantly, but still no pit stop. I would have pitted. I genuinely would have pitted. just to see if maybe this situation would be better. But I'll be honest, I don't know the weather, the wear situation for this, and also the weather, to be honest. I don't actually know if it will change up or if it will stay as it is. Frantic continues as we are exactly the same place where we were last lap around. Nothing much has changed between the two drivers. Frantic's just been trying to save a bit more energy to maybe have a look at making another overtake a little bit later on, maybe in a couple of laps' time. If they're going for the overtake, possibly, they will not. They will continue behind. Very close to the back once again, but still under control compared to last lap where it looked like they were on the limit and possibly going into the back of Pursuit, but for now they will continue. Need to put that pressure on. Now we go and see Frantic and Jesper. They are in a very similar situation. Would we see a mistake unveil an opportunity on the exit of 6 or 7? Both drivers just trying to hustle the car through the corner as you wrestle at the steering just to feel where the grip actually is. Once again, both drivers struggling on the exit. It is incredibly difficult around the circuit. I have driven this circuit in the wet so far, and that turn 7 and 8 complex is very, very slippy indeed, and they're managing to hold on to the cars quite nicely, that is for sure. And lap 18 out of 25, I don't see why you'd go for a pit stop at this point in the race, so it does seem that everybody is going to continue on their way to be able to try and make this a one-stop, which would be very impressive. In theory, it takes away 20 seconds off your lap, or your race distance, I should say, but you do, of course, lose a lot of time from not making a pit stop because your tyres are so much more warm, which does mean that your performance goes down significantly. So taking that risk is very, very calculated. But both these guys, whether they're following their own strategy or following what the lead cars are doing, they are staying out at the moment. And if I was Frantic or Jesper, I would not be doing so, because there might be a very small chance that you could start catching up. Of course, yes, sure, they're over a pit stop away, and if they go for another pit stop, then they're going to all of a sudden be very far behind the lead cars, but maybe that pace advantage is enough. At this stage of the race, I think it's maybe a little bit too late to do so, which makes it very difficult, of course. And by the time the others, or by the time you caught up, the others would probably be able to make a pit stop. But also, you've got, what is that, 7 laps to go, just under 7 laps to go, which basically means it's virtually impossible to catch up in that time. It's so difficult to do so. If you pit too early, your tyres die out at the end. If you pit too late, obviously the cars around you will get such an undercut, but also you'll have less laps to be able to bring that gap down. So you really want to try and utilise the tyre by pitting at the latest possible moment, whilst utilising the entire bit of performance that you can out of a tyre, no pun intended. It's very, very difficult to judge, but ultimately we're not going to see that because we're not going to see any pit stops. And these guys will continue as they are. Nifo and Pursuit in the pursuit of taking the 1-2. Who's going to finish ahead, however? That is something that we don't quite know. Like 20 out of 25 into turn 3. In a couple of moments' time, I reckon we'll probably see some switching up, as we saw in the opening laps of the Grand Prix. But Nifo is saving a lot on the battery, so is Pursuit. Both drivers are comfortably relaxing at this stage of the Grand Prix. Jesper P3, Frantic 2.5 seconds behind Jesper, so was very close before, had a couple mistakes, and then since then haven't been able to catch back up. And in the wet conditions, or just around this circuit I should say, even though the gap doesn't really look that big on the data, looking at 2.4 seconds, if you look at physically where the cars are, it looks absolutely massive. absolutely huge. The margins around this circuit are so difficult around a very short circuit. The time penalty effectiveness is a lot more compared to a circuit that you get like Belgium or Singapore, where the laps are a lot longer. Of course, Singapore having that alteration, as that's incredible car control there from Frantic. Singapore having that alteration, which makes it a lot shorter, but still it's a long circuit. Frantic going into the pit lane, and whether they go into the pit lane for new tyres or retire the car, I don't quite know, but we'll see what they can do. Nifo is they're going to be an overtaking shout. They will not be. Lap 21 out of 25, they will continue. And it does seem that Frantic is going for an actual pit stop to try and get maybe a fastest lap in the Grand Prix, so they'll get that fresh rubber on, and that is good for them. It does give the opportunity for Jesper to do the same thing, since they of course were ahead but also have pitted so early on. Frantic doing that of course to try and maybe warm up the tyres, get that opportunity to warm up the tyres. Of course that 3 second isn't going to help exactly, but we'll see. They might have a go at going for a fastest lap, and we just look at the gap to leader, 47 seconds. So let's say it would have been about 40 seconds more or less that would have had to have been caught if those guys pitted a little bit earlier on. In a couple of laps, in under 10 laps, 40 seconds is absolutely crazy to try and find. It's not impossible. It is not impossible, but it would be very difficult to do so. Lap 22 to 25, these guys counting down the laps, and as I expected, Jesper going into the pit lane to react to what Frantic's doing. Not only do they not want to be caught on old tyres, but also they might have a go at going for a fastest lap point, which would be very nice to have. Of course, indeed, getting that pit stop done. Frantic comes around the final corner. Will they have gained time, or will it not really have mattered because those tyres would be so cold? Overall, Jesper's still got to warm up their tyres as well, so Frantic could have an advantage here. And the fastest lap attempt, if these guys fight each other, might be out the window, and they do gain quite a lot of time, about over a second, well over a second. They'll have warm tyres as well. They were using energy also, so they're probably going to get the fastest lap on this lap, but will they be fighting with Jesper out of all of that instead of going for a fastest lap attempt right here? It could be very interesting, and that is the risk that you take by going for such an early pit stop. If you're in dry conditions where the tyres will warm up a lot easier, then you probably go for a pit stop on the final 2 laps of the Grand Prix. So you've only got 1 lap to do it yourself, but no one else is able to react and go as well. Maybe you do 2 laps just for safety, but that's only if you're very confident. Now, Pursoon leads the way on lap 23 out of 25, and Nifo's still holding on nicely behind, just waiting for an opportunity. Jesper is ahead. Frantic in the background, you can see that, not too far away. And these guys are now preparing for a fast lap. Of course, I believe that Frantic was maybe already going for that. Will they get the fastest lap? They will. Now Jesper has clean air, and they will start their first timed lap, really, well, non-out lap I should say, losing the car on the exit of turn 1. Unfortunately, not going to be exactly ideal. They have a bit of energy to deploy, Frantic not so much, so unfortunately for Frantic that might be over for a fastest lap attempt if they're not careful. Regarding overtaking for position, it's probably very unlikely because of their time penalty situation, so they might want to try and save some energy on the next few laps to maybe have another go at that fastest lap attempt at the end. That being said, they might not really be interested. They might try and fight. What would have been possible for Frantic to do is go for that fastest lap right there, as they did, and then start fighting Jesper. And that would have been brilliant for them, but they weren't able to. They don't have the ability to attack, and Jesper could have a look at going for a fastest lap here. Penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. Nifo lining up a move ready for the final lap potentially. Jesper wasn't able to get it for the fastest lap. We look at the fastest lap, a 14.0, a 13.8, needs 2/10, and that would have been the difference there at the first corner. Will they be able to have a go a little bit later on? I don't quite know, but we start the final lap of the Grand Prix with the top two, Pursoon versus Nifojan. Who is going to get it? Nifo holds on behind. They are very hot into the first corner and still getting the traction down, gaining massively from there. Turn 3 is their main overtaking opportunity. Will they try and send it though? I don't think they're going to have a chance. Pursoon tries to defend a little bit just to make sure there's no shenanigans at all, and they realise that Nifo's not going to be close enough, so they go back to the racing line. But on the exit instead, Nifo's going to have a second opportunity, which Pursoon was maybe not expecting. They go defensive yet again. This time Nifo's going to send it around the outside, but as yesterday, not going to quite get it on the outside on the final lap of turn 4. But as yesterday, they will have a go to the inside line into turn 6. Pursoon closes the door way too late. He's going to be spun round very slightly. They're going to lose a lot of traction, and that is absolutely tragic right there. Pursoon is going to hold on to the lead of the Grand Prix, and they've got a couple more corners, and they will be able to look at winning here in Austria. Pursoon, the final corner is here, and they win the Austrian Grand Prix. Nifo's going to take P2 after a brilliant effort on the final lap. Jesper and Frantic, who will get the fastest lap of the Grand Prix? Jesper needs 2/10 from what they did last time around. Will they be able to have it? We'll go through the sector line and see if that's going to be possible, as they're trying their absolute best. 2/10 up, 7/10 up. Frantic, are they going faster than they have done before? I don't know, but they've just lost it on the exit at turn 7. It could be all over for the fastest lap attempt here for Frantic. Jesper, regardless, is going to take that podium position. Will it be fastest lap for the Swedish driver on debut? Final corner, it was power sliding on the exit. Fastest lap, it's going to be theirs. Frantic will not have it. What a shame, but what an effort between both drivers. Incredible stuff. And that is the race over and done with. A 35% distance race, still provided some interesting racing, of course. And that is job done for the Saturday tier. We're going to get the results on the screen. There's Pursoon. And that is Pursoon taking the win, Nefo in P2, Jesper with the fastest lap, and then Frantic in P4. We go through the race director, and we'll be back for the post-race interviews. We'll see you in a bit. Hello everyone, and welcome to the post-race interviews of the Austrian Grand Prix. We're today for, what the hell? No, never mind. I've bottled that. We are Frantic. Frantic, that was an interesting one. Wet conditions weren't easy, of course. Go for the fastest lap attempt, but unfortunately pitted a little bit too early and lost it there. Can you take us through it?
First of all, thank you for having me. Obviously, I took a long break to spend some time with my family. Great to be back here. Big thanks to the guys back at the factory. They've done an incredible job working on the car. Felt alive in the corners. Yeah, so good to be back. Also, it's fun to be racing against these guys again. I remember being in a pretty intense title fight with Jesper a while back. Now we're fighting again, back on track. So that's really fun. So I'm happy being back at dominating the game again. What was the question again?
Just can you take us through your race, basically? So I think if you've done that, then that's fair enough. Monaco, whether you race there or not, is that a circuit that you like?
No, I don't have. I don't like Monaco. There's been a few incidents with me and another driver. I'm not gonna say his name. It was pretty intense. So I'm not gonna be. Yeah, I don't think I'll be racing at the Monaco Grand Prix. To be honest, no.
Fair enough. Terrible memories. I do apologise to bring that back up. I'm sure every single one of our viewers, 4 viewers, was cringing at that intro to the interview. Thank you very much, Frantic, and we'll see you next time. Well done today.
Bye-bye.
And we move on to Nifo. Nifo, that was a difficult one. A long race, of course, with it just kind of being a bit of a train in the wet conditions. Now, I'm not going to ask what happened throughout the race, but I'm going to ask your opinion on that last lap situation from Pursuit, that absolutely outrageous manoeuvre in turn 6.
I mean, obviously, I'm coming from like a little bit far back. I mean, not like super far back, but I come from like drivable distance. But I feel like looking at it now, he's turning into the grass. He's like, he sees me coming. He's like, you know what, Nifo, that's kind of a small gap. Let's make it smaller. And then he just, I think he's just turning into grass at the moment. But in my opinion, I don't think it's fair. But obviously, it's racing. It happens. Yeah, I don't know. But if I was the steward, I would give him a massive penalty for that. Honestly.
Fair enough. Well, we heard about Monaco yesterday from you, so I'm not going to ask about that. I'm just going to let it go. Thank you very much, Nifo. I'm sorry for the outrageous situation that you had to be in there for turn 6. I'm sure we'll have a word with that driver who was involved. I cannot say I'm sorry enough. It's absolutely terrible. But thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
And that's been it for the post-race interviews. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching. And that has been that. We will see you next weekend for the Monaco Grand Prix. Have a good one, and bye-bye.